My name is Allison Kett. I am a local psychologist here in Anne Arundel County, and I also own Waypoint Wellness Center, which is a large mental health practice. So I guess I wear two hats, so I'll start as a psychologist. As a psychologist, I treat various mental health conditions, from anxiety to depression to ADHD to bipolar or just some adjustment issues going on in your life. So what that entails is individual therapy or family therapy. And I work with people, of all different ages, starting from little guys. I usually start around the age of 5 and go through adulthood. So I'd say about half and half, kids and adults. Regarding how to become a psychologist, I think it requires lots of years and motivation. People often say, oh gosh, you must have been so smart since you went for all those years of school. And I'm like, no, it's more of dedication and motivation than smarts, if anything, because it's just a lot of work. So I started off by going to the College of William & Mary for my undergrad. I got my master's at Columbia University, and then I went and got my doctorate at the American School of Professional Psychology, which no longer exists, it's been bought out, but that was in DC. So I finished when I was about 29 years old. So with 1 year off of working in between all of that. So just imagine it's a long haul. So that's why I say it takes a lot of motivation to get through to the end. But don't regret one bit of it. I love what I do. I get to help people every day. It's never a dull moment. It's very interesting work. So I think one of the things I went into this field for is I didn't want monotony. I didn't want it to be the same thing every day. I wanted to be constantly learning, and you have to do that within our field because you have to stay on top of things. You never know what's going to come through the door. So you need to be prepared for that. But there's also lots of different angles you can go, or jobs you could have with psychology as well. So before having a family in the mix, I also was an adjunct professor over at Loyola University. So I taught doctoral level grad students in their clinic, one of their clinics there. So I was supervising them, start the process of learning how to do therapy, and teaching them how to do therapy with kids. So you could be a professor, you could do research, you could do therapy, you could be a consultant in businesses, you could go work in an HR department. There's so much you can do as a psychologist. So opportunities are available. You just need to like school in order to get to the end of that. As a business owner, you don't need, let's say, the degrees. I think the degrees would help me. So I would say advanced degrees, college, and business classes are all important in that process, because you need to be able to look at the bigger picture and be very detail-oriented, and understand like lots of different aspects. Like I've had to learn about accounting. I've had to learn about management. I've had to learn, just being a contractor myself. When you're a business owner, you get to do it all. It's not just being the fancy boss. You're the one who has to go fix the toilet too if it's broken, because none of your employees wanted to handle that. So you take on lots of different hats, and you have to be very flexible. So education-wise, I don't think there's any certain specific requirements to be a business owner, but I think it is very helpful to be well-educated in order to do that. So looking at some of the various questions that are ahead of me, credentials. So for a psychologist, you have to have the degrees, obviously. And you hear about therapists or counselors, and there's those very different levels, and there's different types of mental health providers. As a doctoral level psychologist, it's kind of the most trained, most higher educated of the options. You also have social workers, which are usually master's level, and you have counselors, which are master's level. Regarding my degree and my position as a psychologist, you have to graduate, obviously, usually from an accredited university, and do an internship at an accredited site. And following that, you have to take a national exam. So every psychologist in the country takes what we call as the EPPP. And you need to pass that exam. And then the second part of that is each state is different. So in Maryland, there's also a legal exam for Maryland that you have to learn about the state laws excuse my phone, and pass that exam to practice within the state of Maryland as well. And then ongoing, every 2 years, you have to kind of pay your check to keep your license active, as well as take various, which we say 40 continuing education units. So that's one seminar, like it's usually per hour. So think about 40 hours of education every 2 years. And there are certain classes you have to take within that, like staying up on laws and ethics, cultural diversity. If you're supervising students, you have to take certain supervisory classes. So there's always learning on top of your work. Again, business owner, you just really need to pay the fees to the state of Maryland and open up the business. There's no really credentials involved. Which is the company for fine training. So my company, so Waypoint Wellness Center, I'll go about my business. We have 3 different locations. We started in Linthicum and we expanded to Annapolis, and 2 years ago we expanded to Severna Park. So within our business, we have counselors, social workers, psychologists, and psychiatrists, all providing various mental health treatment to individuals in Anne Arundel County or surrounding counties too, because we do pull from, Baltimore or Columbia or, over the bridge. And it's never a dull moment, and it's a constantly busy business. So mental health is something that you can always, it's going to be lucrative, and you're always going to have work. So something definitely to consider in your options in picking jobs. So I think for the skills that are most important for a psychologist, I think empathy is huge. You need to be able to understand and put yourself in someone else's shoes, but not sympathy. Don't feel bad for them, just being able to understand where they're coming from. Most of my clients don't want my sympathy. They want my help. So it's really important just to be a good listener, and to be personable. I think some of the best psychologists I work with are not the ones that are necessarily got the straight A's and know all the different treatments and can tell you a treatment protocol from stuff. That's great. But what comes down to is your relationship with the individual, and being able to connect with them, and building their trust. I think that is the basis of any type of therapy, and that's what's going to make it work, no matter what techniques you utilize in the sessions. As a business owner, organization is huge. You got to be able to stay on top of deadlines. You got to be able to submit certain paperwork. You have to be approachable. So you need to be a leader, but not necessarily a mean boss. So I think the most we really pride on our business model is to, we're a team. We're not a hierarchy. So from the person who is picking up the phones to, schedule a new patient, to the psychiatrist who's prescribing the medications, we're all equally as valuable to the business, and we expect that mutual respect. So to us, that is very, very important. So as our leader in our business and our requirements, it would be to be able to be respectful and kind, and we treat it like a family. So sometimes that hurts, because if a family member leaves, it's a little more sad than if it was purely a business thing. So it's just, I think in my industry, it'd be mutual respect would be very important. And there's others. So, I have a business partner, and I think that's important, to be able to work with others, because there are some things that she's amazing at that I'm horrible at. She is more about, being able to manage the people. I'm more about the numbers and the details. I don't give her bills to pay because they would be late. So we balance each other out in a lot of ways. So I think as a business owner, it's important to know that you don't have to be good at everything, and you should know what your weaknesses are, because if you don't, that's when problems happen. So I know what my weaknesses are. She knows what hers are. We balance each other out, and we make a great team. And so, we've been able to grow this practice of just the two of us to 20 something plus doctors, 3 different locations in the past 6 years, 7 years, 6 and a half, well, somewhere around there. So I think that's key too, is just knowing your weaknesses and knowing your strengths and really building on that. And also knowing when you have to kind of subcontract out. So I don't need to be an accountant. I don't want to be an accountant. I don't need to learn how to be an accountant. I trust my accountant. So just making sure you trust your outside team. Thinking about law and contracts. I don't want to know about that. I could learn about it, but I'd rather hire somebody to do that work than me taking on a whole new industry, a whole new career. So knowing that you have to have a good team as a base too, for the business. So personal jobs I find most, I guess, part of my job that's most satisfying. Both sides I can give it to you. So as a psychologist, I love being able to help people. I love being able to watch them through that journey and get to the other side of that and be more independent and more sufficient and just being able to handle their stressors in their life. I think a lot of what we work with, and I know it's becoming hope with this pandemic, and Suburban Park itself has definitely become more aware of mental health, is that these are chronic conditions. They're no cure. They're not going away. There's no quick fix. There's no pill. It is something that you have to learn to manage with your life. And it's not saying that they're going to be active all times in your life, but they're always kind of dormant there. So we have to learn not only to get to the place where they're dormant and stable, but then how to keep living so that they stay dormant, or if they pop up, how to kind of manage it quickly so that it doesn't become so disruptive. So being able to teach those tools and helping people understand what it is pretty amazing. Getting parents on board is huge. And it's always very satisfying when you see a parent who's like so afraid to even tell their kid they're going to therapy, or, oh my God, my kid has depression, to being able to be the ones who's like, out there, picketing, or like, in the parades and doing all that kind of stuff to support mental health awareness, or it's amazing to see their journeys as well. Sometimes it's sad because you don't get to see a lot of the good, you see all the bad. So it's always nice. Once in a while, a patient will send me an email or something after years, or a letter, and I'm like, oh, it's wonderful to see how great they were doing. So the downside of it is you usually see people when they're in their worst, not where you don't want them to come to you when they're doing well, right? That's a kind of a pointless. Regarding the satisfaction of the business, I think it has been, very humbling to see how this business has grown, from not knowing anything about it and kind of just learning as we go. We've made mistakes, we've made some great choices, and I think we've learned from our mistakes to keep going forward. So it's just been satisfying to see. And I think seeing other people, you guys are frozen, so hopefully I'm not frozen, but seeing other people like, wow, you're like, this is the, and then I kind of like, it's humbling. I'm just like, it's not a big deal, whatever. But it is, I think I have to acknowledge how much we've been able to accomplish, and to be able to provide services for so many people. So that has been satisfying on both fronts, as the business owner and being able to, give these services to so many people, as well as the psychologist who's doing the work. Challenging. I think there's a lot of challenging aspects of both sides of it. As a psychologist, I mean, it's frustrating. Sometimes people don't want to make the changes that they need to make, because I tell people, I'm like, I'm a coach. I'm a kind of your guidance. I cannot do it for you. So when people thank me, I'm like, you're thanking yourself because you did the work. I just kind of guided you along the way. So, but not everyone's ready for that. Or we have competing forces like a parent or somebody who's not necessarily on board with it. So it's harder to make that progress. And then with adults too, it's like you get set in these patterns. It's hard to break them. It's kind of scary to go outside that comfort zone. So it can be really challenging to get people to the other side. Or when you see, I think the biggest thing is when you see a lot of like sad situations that, it's unavoidable. You can't really help the situation. You can help the person, but you wish you could change the situation for the person. And I'm powerless to that. So that's challenging. Regarding the business side of things, I mean, working with lots of different types of people and learning how to manage that, and I think it could be challenging because not everyone's the same. Everyone has the same needs. And what you might think would be like somebody be really well received to one employee is not to another. So I find that challenging, as I think I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And then they come like, I don't like, I'm like, oh crap, what did I do? But I think, just people are all different. So that can be challenging at both ends. The job affecting my lifestyle. With psychology, you really need to learn how to separate it, because you can take it home. And I think that's something that it takes years to accomplish and to get there. And it's still a challenge every day to be able to separate what I hear during the day and not bringing it home to my own children and family. This is why I tell kids, don't use your friends as your therapists, because they don't have the training I do to be able to handle that information and to handle that stress. So that is a challenge. And I think there's still some people that'll hit me, like, these stories that you hear and just unfortunate situations. And it's like, you can't help but take it home. But I try very hard to like, okay, this is work, this is home, putting boundaries in place are very important to help manage that. But it can affect me, and, can be definitely affect how you see the people in your life as well, which is a positive thing and a negative thing. You appreciate the husband that does this for you when someone else is struggling with or, the problems that we don't have that other people have. So it makes me definitely more appreciative of what I've been given and the opportunities, and the privilege I've been granted. It's not just because of who I am, so it's been very eye-opening. I'm not sure how I got there, but the lifestyle, the business side of it, it takes a lot of hours to run a business. It's very, very, very time consuming. Sometimes it's not always satisfying work, but it's just a lot of work. So I think that has taken a toll on my family once in a while, especially in the beginning when I'm working these, I'm seeing my patients and then running the business. And so I'm working 12, 14-hour days, takes a toll on the other end. But they, support a family is great and they understand, and there's some, benefits at the end of it all too for them. So I think just learning that balance is important, but it can be very challenging and take a toll at times. How has the economy affected our industry? Well, this pandemic has unfortunately been great for mental health workers, in a sense that we have plenty of work to do. Unfortunate for our community in a sense that everyone's been struggling. But and then positive too is people are more aware of it. Like, it's bringing a lot to mental health awareness, because I think the pandemic is short term. This mental health pandemic is going to continue on for a very, very long time. And the effects that it's having on the kids right now with being home and being isolated and you name it, not having the services that they need, it's been very detrimental to our children. So in the business side of it, yeah, I got lots of business. We basically are all full. At some point, most days, we can't take new people because of how full we are. But so it's a positive and a negative for us. I wish we could help everybody, and we try to, keep growing in order to do that. So the pandemic has actually been very helpful for the mental health industry, regarding the services. However, people are struggling. So changes are occurring. So I think the biggest change in the regards to, business-wise, you're having to learn to be creative to make money in this. And you have to go outside the box and really change quickly with business plans, because we've been presented with challenges like you have all these buildings, and guess what? No one's in them. So how do you just have had to get creative and adapt. But regarding mental health, virtual healthcare and telehealth is huge now, and that's something that's not going to leave. So that's been a big change in our field, adjusting to being able to do therapy like this, like I'm doing right now. With adults, it's been an easy transition. It's actually, they like it because it's less disruptive to their day. They can go in an office at work and do it, or go in their car. I've seen lots of people's cars. In schools, there's less disruptive because the counselor can give them a room at the school, so they don't have to leave and come back, and it's 3 hours versus just 45 minutes, which has been amazing. Unfortunately, the private schools have been better about that than public school, because they're not in at school, public school, but the private schools have more of the the space to be able to provide that. But that's been great. It's been more challenging with the little kids. I don't necessarily like doing therapy this way with little kids, because I like to have them in the room and we play and we do things. So we've gotten creative with, Minecraft and Roblox, and being able to learn how to play video games with a kid while also having them on the video. So it's just been a whole new world of, of learning how to apply what we do virtually. Not to say that I don't prefer it in person. I do. There's something to say it's missing. And staring at a computer all day is not fun on my end. So, I think, again, telehealth is not going anywhere now. I think it's here to stay. I think about, like, now that my doors are open, I could see people. I see probably about 50% of people in person, and other 50 are either telehealth still because they do prefer it, or, the few that are really very, very, very cautious regarding the pandemic and have other health conditions and people in their lives that they can't put at risk of coming in. So I think that is where we're at with regarding the business side of things. And I'm not sure if there's any other questions or concerns. As a practice and as the owners talk, Dr. Tana Clark and I are the co-owners. We love being able to help other people with businesses too. So this is one of the side things, if anyone's interested in starting a small business, we meet with them. We get so excited and jazzed about it. We love spreading our knowledge, regarding other practices. People are like, oh, they're competition. And we're like, no, there's plenty of people to help. There's no competition with us. We love being able to help other people grow it and do their thing. So, we've had students come on board too from Sabrina Park as interns, which has been great to kind of teach them psychology or business as well. So, I think part of being a business owner is giving back to the community and in which you live. So we luckily get to do that both ends of this, being a psychologist and being the business owner. So.